Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Wednesday, and not welcome everyone. Welcome to the members of the channel. Thank you very much for your support. We have the crew gathered today. We are doing the rock IDs for November. I think we have 4 of them today, so we're going to get right into them. As always, the crew is going to look at these rock video submissions, look at the video entirely, and then give you our feedback going around the horn. So people, if you have opinions, please raise your hand and we'll come to you in due turn. This is the first one submitted by Rockhound supporters, quarter kilo from Amarillo, Texas, found in a sandy area. I think we have a few pictures and then a video of this one. All right.
Okay, this is one that I didn't find. My grandmother had this. I noticed one thing on here. It's like chondral, chondral reliefs right here. I'm guessing those are too. It's also some of the crust. This was found in a sandy area. I've noticed. I guess it's kind of like lipping over. It's kind of hard to see it on here, but if you get it just right, you could see it. This is a polished part, but it was broken, so there are little things that didn't get all the way because they used a piece of sandpaper. I also have this another cut piece for it, but as you notice, there's other chondral reliefs, it looks like. There's more right here. You can see it's kind of hard to see on this end, but I would call it lipping, and maybe that is a flip over. Maybe it's just lipping. I have another piece that is right here that was cut from here.
Rockhounders, when you're submitting your videos, it's really important that we have the item in focus. Most of the video, this thing has not been in focus because there's other rocks in the background. If you have a flat background, your camera's not going to be fighting constantly, and we'll be actually able to see the sample a lot better.
Also notice there's leftover fusion crust in the creases. This is a polished part. I tried to get it the best I could. You see little metal flakes.
Now we see the
What I've
background right
noticed
now,
is
though.
with this melt right here, if I get it right, you'll notice these black lines. If you get it right, they follow through here
Mm-hmm.
and then go with these flow lines from the top. And I'm guessing those are some flow lines or flip over. It's a nice one.
All right, I think we have a few hands up. I see Art with his hand up. Art, why don't we go to you first?
Yeah. My comments are not made to be derogatory toward the individual who's presenting. I'm just making verbal observation of what I see. To me, it looks like a rock that's been weathered either by water or erosion on the surface, due to sand and whatever, but it's well rounded. It's the same color inside as it is outside, and I would call it a rhyolite. It gives me the impression that it's a rhyolite, and a rhyolite can be described in a couple of different ways, but I guess the most common is volcanic ash, and contributes a great deal to a rhyolite, but don't hold me to that.
Fantastic, man. That's some good feedback. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Dave Pinsky.
Yeah, it actually, everything that Arthur said, it does to me look like a bit of a river rock, but it's also the color is not indicative of a meteorite. There are really not many meteorites that have that color. And it looks very much like rocks you would find in the Southwest, just commonly. And no, not even any indication of any fusion crust. The rollover lips and some of the things were mentioned are actually just parts of the rock that may have been layered and such, which are common in rocks. But it's good. I've always said, never be afraid to ask a question or ask whether this looks like a meteorite, because inevitably you learn something in the process, whether you're right or wrong. If you're right, it's great. But if you're wrong, you've learned something, and that's always a victory. So I applaud you for bringing this in, because you weren't sure what it was. Anyway, that's what I got.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. I'm going to go to Prairie Girl Rocks, Allison, next. And I don't know if you were prepared to or not, but he's pointing out something right now that I was hoping that one of our crew members would touch on. But what do you have for us?
I'm not going to touch directly on that, unfortunately.
Okay.
Sorry, Topher, but I'm really glad to be following Dave. That was a really nice critique, Dave. I appreciate that. And Rockhound supporter, you're on the right track. And I want to say that I think that this is probably some kind of family member of the sandstone, especially since we find it in sand. And sandstone can be magnetically attracted, and it's usually not the sand or the silicates in it that's making it magnetically attracted. And we didn't really touch on that in this particular sample, whether it is or isn't attracted to a magnet. But a lot of the things that cement sandstone together can be things like iron oxides and hematites and even hornblends and things. So I've been tricked by some sandstones before, and it is a possibility. What's really interesting to me about this piece in particular, though, I happened to just punch it into Google really quick while I was waiting for my turn about what makes sandstone magnetic, and Google agrees, things like iron oxides and hematites, but it actually mentions red sandstones, that the reason why they're red in color is due to the presence of hematite. So I wonder if we don't have a red colored sandstone here. And again, it definitely has some reasons why a novice would definitely pick that up and think, this is curious. So don't feel bad. Rockhound supporter, I've been tricked by some sandstones and things before as well.
Nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm going to mention one thing that I thought was very interesting that he pointed out as well. And we're going to go to Pat after this. He's pointing out these lines go through the entire sample. They start here and go like right here. He says they were going all the way through, which is true. Like, but he was calling them flow lines. Flow lines are only on the surface because they're the fusion crust that's been liquefied, flowing along the surface. So you're never going to have any flow lines penetrate into a rock. Actually, you know what? I lied. We're going to go to Sue next. She's prettier than Pat. Sue, what do you got? You have your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute.
There you go.
I was just going to agree with what someone said earlier, that there aren't many meteorites of this color. There is one that I can think of, and I believe it's pronounced Erg Atula 001. And I suggest that Rockhounder goes and takes a look at the pictures of this, so you can see a meteorite that actually has a very similar color, but actually see what the meteoritic features look like when you find a meteorite that's kind of this orangey, rusty color, because you'll see there's a lot of differences, especially with the outside, the external features of the rock.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Pat real quick. And Ben, unless you have something earth-shattering, can we move on to the next sample? Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You're on mute, but I read your lips say absolutely. Pat, what's up?
Okay, yeah, so this rock is the same color on the inside as on the outside. There are some black areas on the outside, but they look like a weathering rind. I agree that this looks like an igneous rock, could be a granite or a rhyolite. The shape of it is definitely water worn, and we can note on the end that there are some brittle fractures that go down into the surface, more evidence that this is a river cobble sort of rock. The sparkly parts that he's calling metal are quite likely either the surfaces of the crystals inside this igneous rock. And some of these igneous rocks also contain mica, which looks very metallic. He's on the right track looking for chondrules, but nothing that he points out actually looks like a chondrule. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is this representation of the mica you were talking about?
Yes. So those could be the surface of crystals reflecting back to us, or they could be bits of mica in the rock, which is common in granites.
Ben, any comment about this interior? You're a chondrule man too.
Okay, let me unmute. All right. Yeah, you can't. I'm sorry. I've seen meteorites with that exterior color because they were oxidized on the outside, but the inside is never the same color. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
I appreciate that. Am I the only one? Okay, we'll make it. We try to be as serious as possible, but I'm looking at this thinking, wow, I haven't had a good steak in a while. All right.
One of the other things is he mentioned lipping.
Yeah.
But you can't have lipping on the curved surface of the meteorite. You can have it at the beginning or end of a plane, the beginning or the end of a curve, but not in mid curve. I'm sorry. It just no.
It would never be. Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Like this right here. It's never going to be in the middle. It's always going to be along this edge here. So, all right, crew, thank you very much. I appreciate and agree with everyone. And we actually gave you some words to the Google. Art, what was that word? One more time.
What was what I called the specimen, the rhyolite.
Rhyolite. All right, thank you
Rhyolite.
very much. Sorry to put you on the spot and wake you up again. All right,
That's okay.
We're on to sample number 2. This was sent to us by D'Antangelo. It weighs just over 100 grams and it's slightly magnetic. Here we go.
Good afternoon, folks. I actually had another video prepared for you, but I'm deciding to do this one instead. This baby weighs 109.8 grams and is slightly magnetic. It pulls a string towards it, but it's not enough to hold the magnet on. Only on a string. Has what looks like shock veins all over it. And here is a small window, which only provides a slight different contrast. It has what looks like fusion crust on it. And maybe slightly regmaglyphic features.
All right, that was the end of his narration. So I'm going to let the video play while I cue up some hands. I want to talk about the look that we're seeing right here. These he mentioned that these are reminiscent of shock veins to him. And by the way, that's what we want. We want you guys on your videos to tell us what you're seeing and what you're thinking. We can't jump in your head and read your mind. So when you say, I think this is fusion crust, well, that's great. That gives us something to go on, and we can now talk to that. You were mentioning that these may be shock veins. I'm going to disagree with that. You normally do not see shock veins going, like, I don't want to edit this, but I really want to put up some pictures of shock veins right now. So I'm going to let this video play. We do have a we do have our crew geologist Mike Kelly joining us. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you for first thoughts on this sample.
Yeah, so certainly, if you look at the spot where he windowed, and doing a window is a great idea to see inside what you're looking at. That looks incredibly like a siltstone to me. You see almost no mineral grain texture in there, so that's super fine grained. He mentioned that it pulls a magnet on a string. One thing I would be interested in is looking at the distribution of where he was saying there were like what he thinks are shock veins, and the exterior where he thinks is fusion crust. It'd be interesting to see if that's more magnetic than the other aspects of it, because to me that looks like that material is either magnetite or some other material that's kind of filled in the cracks and coated the outside of that rock, and it's probably what's giving it that magnetic nature to it versus the siltstone itself. So those are kind of my thoughts on that one.
Interesting. Thank you very much. And please stay with us. We're going to come back for you for your opinion on the next samples as well, Mike. Okay. If you look at this, I want to point this out up here. This was mentioned could be fusion crust. I'll let anyone else talk to that or anything they want. And Ben, we kind of shut you out last time, so we'll go to you first. What you got, bud? You're on mute.
It just looks to me like that what he's calling fusion crust to me is too lumpy and too thick. It should be much thinner than that, and even remnant fusion crust wouldn't be that clumpy. Also, like Mike pointed out, it's too fine grained. It's like a chert or a flint, and the dark spots to me look like hematite or magnetite.
I think, thank you very much. I'm looking at, hopefully I can catch it. Okay, you see how this, let's pretend that this was fusion crust. Fusion crust is a surface feature. It would not penetrate and go into and turn into a shock vein all of a sudden. So we have to make up our mind when we're looking at something. Is it a shock vein? If it's a shock vein, then let's look for anything that doesn't look right for a shock vein, which would be flattening out and covering a thickness on top of the rock. That's not what a shock vein does. That's what fusion crust does, but fusion crust doesn't go down and lightning strikes into your rock. So you have to pick one side of the street to view it from. Dave, can I go to you next?
Get off. Okay, I'm there. Yeah, so I'm gonna add to that point in terms of being magnetic. One of the things you want to do when you feel a little bit of a pull and you window it through is the only thing that is going to, or one of the things that is going to cause that is metallic iron, especially since the most common type meteorites are what's called ordinary chondrites. They would have it wouldn't be such a fine grain, for one. And number two, you would literally see the little bits of metallic iron. They would be shiny. And I would suggest, instead of just looking for shiny stuff, you want to get a loupe and really check it out. If it looks crystally, it's not a metallic inclusion. And that's what would cause it to be for the most part, attracted to a magnet. Again, this looks like something that's been through a river a bit, and some of the dark spots might be just outside weathering material on that. And again, like he said, it wouldn't go in through the actual rock. And that's what I got.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sue, what do you have for us?
I just wanted to add for Rockhounders that are members or people thinking of becoming a member, as you record your videos, it is preferable to have a rare earth magnet on a string. But if you don't have that, we are totally fine if you show us a refrigerator magnet. But whatever magnet attraction to magnetism test that you do, we would really prefer that you do it on the video so we can see how it's attracting to the rock. And that's all to add.
Good idea. Yeah.
Same with stream test too.
Yeah, whenever we're doing the magnet tapping on it, we're doing that for everyone on our crew to hear how quickly it snaps to. That we get a lot of information off of that. Allison, what do you have for us?
Okay, I want to back us up a little bit. Again, we have the three main flavors of meteorites: palisite iron and stony iron. And it just, to me, it's most obviously not a palisite. And to me, it's obviously not an iron, which leaves us left with, outside of those really extremely rare possibilities, which I also don't believe it is, would leave us with the option of chondrite. And again, we just don't see any chondrules or metal blebs in it. And so is without that foundation to build our house on, we can't even look past into saying, you know, fusion crust or contraction cracks, because I think we've got to pump the brakes at Earth Rock.
Yeah.
So
I'm really, really glad you hit on that, Allison. Sorry to bite off the last couple words you had to say. But yeah, it's super important not to get lost in the weeds of technical and scientific data that you really can't comprehend. You take it back to the easiest, simple things. Like I said, it's either going to be a fusion crust or it's going to be a shock vein. It's going to act like one and not the other. Which is it? You're saying there's mainly three types of meteorites that cover 95 to 98% of everything out there. Let's whittle it down and see what it is. And when there's nothing left standing, it's either the first of something or it's the 1 millionth Earth rock. So thank you very much, Allison. Pat, do you want to do cleanup on this one for us, please?
Yes, thank you. So the crew's comments are very strong. I think they're very good observations there. For shape-wise, again, this looks very much like a water-worn rock in a river or something. And it also has some impact points that we see that it's a fairly brittle rock. We see the same texture and the same color on the inside as we do on the outside. And notably, you know, it lacks any features like chondrules. The things that he's pointing out as shock veins could well be much more easily explained by being hydrothermal veins, something, you know, deposited inside a crack in the rock, which is super common on Earth rocks, and we haven't seen that mechanism on meteorite parent bodies. And finally, the fusion crust that he's talking about here is far too thick and not distributed on the rock like you would see actual fusion crust. And so it's probably a weathering rind. That's what I had. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And again, we talk about these deep line cracks going all the way. That's not a very meteoritic feature. It was one thing that I wanted to show on this, and wow, I actually got a good screen grab. All these cracks, that's where the black material is. That to me goes exactly what Pat was saying, I believe, to the hydrothermal alteration, the veins of that, rather than shock veining. So, all right, I think we're all in agreement, guys. Thank you very much. We're moving on to number 3. Number 3 was submitted by Binyam. It was found in Ethiopia. So we're now looking at an 11-pound sample, and we don't have the streak and magnetic results, but the tests were done. There's going to be 2 rocks on this video, but Binyam did not submit a video last month, so we're putting these together, and he actually believes they are the same rock that just broke in half. So we'll take that into consideration as we watch this stuff, guys.
I have acquired a stone that I believe to be a meteorite. It was sourced from a town of Shakiso in Ethiopia. This specimen weighs a total of 10.92 pounds and exhibits distinct features, including unique coloration, a rough texture, and a notable sheen. This stone also displays what appears to be fusion crust on multiple sides. In my research, I have explored various methods for identifying meteorites, including magnetic and ceramic tests. After conducting these tests and further expanding my knowledge on the subject, I am increasingly confident that these stones are indeed genuine meteorites.
Hope someone will address these scratches that we're seeing here. I also want to point out that this is a very well documented stone. This is the kind of video quality we like to see in the video submissions. It's in focus. We're seeing all sides of the rock. We're not moving too quickly. It's naturally lit. You can see shadows and textures. This is a well filmed video. So thank you. All right, I'm open for people to raise their hands if they have opinions already. He did mention the sheen of the rock, so I hope someone mentions that. Let's go right to our crew geologist. Mike, what do you got for us, buddy?
So the first thing that stands out to this piece to me is the angularity on the outside. So he's saying that there's fusion crust, but you see that there's kind of I see where he's getting with the color and the sheen, but it's sitting over a very set of angular surfaces on all sides, which if you were to come through the atmosphere, you ablate and you round off all those surfaces on the stone as it's in flight. And then you form fusion crust over smoother surfaces. So to me, that's one thing that stands out that to me would be a problem with this rock. You mentioned he did do a streak test, but didn't turn in results. One thing that's important when you do a streak test, it should be a clean, new surface you're streaking off of. And so I don't know if the other one was what he streak tested off of, but looking at this first one, like you said, because you're doing 2 of them, there's no open surfaces, right? So I'm not sure where he would have done that, but that should have been windowed prior to streaking.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. You hit on a lot of good things there. Let's see what Allison has to say, and then we'll go to Art after that.
It to me kind of says volcanic material. I do see a lot of little vesicles and air bubbles and things like that, but what stands out blaringly to me are the broken, fractured, angular, all over the face of that rock. Again, the external features to me, that is a big enough stone that it should have some regmaglyphs and smoothed edges, I believe. There's just an odd mix of colors. That red really doesn't sit well with me. I do kind of believe that it may be some kind of a volcanic rock of some sort.
Thank you very much. I'm going to mention something. I hope I don't steal someone's thunder. Well, Dave or Art, were you going to talk about this black stuff right here?
No, more or less was going to talk about the outside looking like the inside. It looks like it contains a very large amount of iron because I'm seeing the oxidation, the red oxidation everywhere. As far as the black goes, I think that's something that just in the mix when it was still in a plastic state, a molten state, may have attached itself to this rock, but very large. And also the comments made earlier by the other crew members about no smooth surfaces, very angular, broken surfaces. Now, I would have to give this a thumbs down as far as a meteorite, but I have to say congratulations to the gentleman doing the video of this, the photographing of this, because I think it's one of the best I've seen. He made all good points about describing this stone, and my hat's off to him for that.
Nice. Thank you,
Thank
man.
you, Art.
Yeah.
Well said.
Topher,
This-
Binyam did enter something into the chat.
Oh,
He's welcome to speak up, but I'm not sure if he just wanted to not be on the audio. So I wanted to read that. He said that he used a magnet on both stones and used a ceramic plate to run across the stones, and that's what the scratches are from. So that's a great example of let us see you doing these tests in the future, because we were, when Topher and I watched this, we were a little confused about the scratches, but now that makes sense. So thank you for clarifying.
and to tack on to, or to reiterate what Mike said earlier, we don't see an exposed surface, and that exposed surface is what's needed for the streak test to be meaningful. We can't have the exterior of the stone scratched. We need the interior of the stone scratched. So, Allison, was I stepping on your toes there? What you got for us?
I'm through. I'll lower my hand.
Okay, awesome. And Sue, I'm taking your hand down too. Art, your hand's down as well. Or did I already go to you? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Oh God, now we're stuck with Dave Pinsky.
You certainly are stuck with me. One of the things that was kind of screaming to me was two minerals, hematite and magnetite. Especially one side that kind of looked a little bit more smooth and shiny, reminded me of some of the hematite I would see at mineral shows. Obviously there is iron in it. The red is indicative of iron. But what I really would have liked to have seen, this side right here is very much like the hematite I would have seen. It seems like a mixture of different types of rocks. But again, the iron you want to see is fresh metallic iron. That is really, really important for discerning whether there's a meteorite. And this one just looks to me like earth, basically hematite or magnetite. Magnetite will stick to a magnet. If you drag your magnet across the sand on a beach, you're going to get a bunch of black sand sticking to your magnet. So it's very common on the surface of the earth. But it's a really cool looking rock. And I want to add to the chorus. It was a beautifully done video, perfectly narrated. My hats off to you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that and the feedback as well.
I have acquired a stone that I...
Okay. No more hands. Ben, what do you have? And then we're going to go to Pat.
Just briefly, I don't see any surfaces that are smooth enough to be even a weathered meteorite. It's much too rough. And if you notice, in some places, it looked like the rock was broken and it fractured along a pattern, a layer, or a cleavage, which meteorites don't do that.
Here. Yep. Thank you. I'm glad you pointed that out. That's what I saw in here. It's layering, almost conchoidal fractures, something like that. It just doesn't, it's not applicable. Pat, I'm going to go to you, but I think at 45 seconds is something I want to show. I don't know. I want to see, I'm pointing to my monitor, you guys can see it. This right up here.
Yeah. Okay, so if you can leave it there for just a second. So yeah, nothing about this rock screams meteorite, very angular, has some brittle fractured surfaces, has some along the crystal lattice fractures.
Mm.
In meteorites, we're looking for soft shoulders because, you know, that process of going through the atmosphere rounds over the edges and the shoulders of the rock. There's no fusion crust visible on this rock, but I wanted to point out here the shiny black area towards the left. Because we know this rock is from Ethiopia and we know that that's a desert area, that is most likely desert rock varnish. And desert rock varnish is extraordinarily thin, and with reflect across polarized light, you can look through it. Also, no chondrules seen, and I agree with a lot of the other comments. It looks like this rock has a lot of iron in it, and so we're seeing rusty colors that could be from sulfides or hematite. Yeah, so definitely earth rock. The white stuff that you're seeing on the right-hand end of the rock could well be, we use the word caliche, which is, we're actually using it properly, but they're basically lime deposits from terrestrial water aging of the stuff. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I was hoping to get a better view of those, because it really, from one of the views of this, those white lines really looked sedimentary to me. Not arguing with you, but from a certain angle, that's what I saw. So hopefully that information was helpful for you, Binyam. Fantastic video. Thank you very much for submitting it, man.
Topher, I wanted to add one more thing. I did ask Binyam a question privately, and I think everyone can see his answer publicly. I asked him, I'm like, the audio was so perfect. Was that your natural voice, or was that AI? That was Binyam's voice, and like that's one of the best audios.
Are you serious?
Wow.
I literally
got a job in
you
radio
actually live
for
in
him.
Ethiopia, because he probably speaks better English than a lot of Americans.
Yeah, holy crap.
Great
Way to
audio,
go, buddy.
Great.
I thought for sure that was an AI voice. Hey, I'll tell you what, stick around. I'll get you to voiceover.
He has a career in voiceovers.
Fantastic.
Yes, you do.
This next video, I want to give you a little bit of warning. We're going to stop and I'm going to give you some feedback all the way through. A lot of times we have people who don't give us enough information. This guy, Jimmy, is giving us a lot of information, and a lot of it is extemporaneous. I don't think we're going to need it all. And I'm really trying to pick my words carefully here, because I really want to be as nice as possible. I don't want Jimmy to feel like I'm attacking him whatsoever. But there's a part in the video where he mentions we're not going to look at the exterior of the rock because it's obviously been glacial worn. So that would be useless. And then he goes into all the details and microscopic pictures of crystal growth and stuff like that, that we look at under thin section photography and stuff. The problem with that is, the only way I can liken it, and I hope this makes sense, is it's like trying to sell a classic 1965 Mustang, and all you're doing is you're giving me the foot torque values of the screws that are used to hold the radiator in, but you're saying, just take my word for it. The outside is cherry. It is a 1965 Mustang, and it's beautiful. Let's get back into the minutia of the air vents. Like, there's so much information in this video that I can't even digest it all. And it's not even terms and stuff that we use day to day in the meteorite trade. The caveat being, I am not a properly educated person from a laboratory point of view. So when we ask for rock submissions, we're looking for the exterior of the rock. You're handicapping us by not showing us the rock. You're also handicapping us because we have Rockhounders. We have a lot of experience here. And that's why I asked for the videos to be submitted a certain way, so that data can be interpolated by our experts who are experts and give you their feedback. we're not really prepared to do microscopy analysis. That's not what the meteorite rock or the rock ID videos are for. So as we're going through this, guys, please glean whatever information you can off of the details that he's giving, and let's get into it. So again, this was submitted by Jim. He did a streak test and it produced a white powder color and a variety of magnetic poles. Now here's an example. And again, Jimmy, all the love in the world. I don't know you, but I'm not giving you a hard time. You're calling this a potential lunar, but you keep on referring to it as an impactite. Those are night and day. Those are different things. They cannot be the same. It's either fusion crust or it's a shock vein. It's either an impactite of terrestrial material or it's a lunar sample. They can't be one and the same. So kind of when my mechanic doesn't know that a car has 4 wheels, I can't take his word that it is a 1965 Cherry Mustang. So hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. Let's get into the video.
Hey guys, so I found this beast while metal detecting for gold in Surrey, BC. It's almost certainly glacially transported, so 12,800 years away.
It was found in British Columbia and transported in a glacier.
Weathering means any surface features will be long gone, so we'll just skip the external features for now. Its density is 295, give or take 0.5. Mohs hardness is equal to hardened glass. That includes the silicates. The streak powder color is white, which seems a little odd considering how dark the material is. The magnetic attraction is decent. A magnetometer reads between 100 and 130 microteslas with spikes well beyond 300 in many places. From the very start, I believed it to be an impactite, just based on the highly cataclastic, extremely reworked appearance that was obvious even on the surface, along with a wide variety of lithologies, textures, and rock types. There are domains of apparent breccia, there are domains of plagioclase, domains of various melts, just to name a few, along with countless classes of every size and type conceivable, all reworked together amongst this jambalaya mashed potato looking boulder. Through field testing, I've determined that this impactite contains a relatively high amount of metallic iron, seen mostly as flecks, aggregates, and clusters of aggregates. The metal draws a magnet, scratches with a steel blade, and is electrically conductive, hence the metallic iron diagnosis. There's also a brassy apparent sulfide present at a ratio less than 1/10 the volume of the metallic iron. Often mixed with or enclosed by metallic iron, this brassy sulfide appears primarily in fine flecks as well as very fine veins that cut through clasts and grains. It also appears in small aggregates and larger, what I would call dotted veins for lack of the proper lingo. You've probably noticed what appears to be a wide variety of melt glasses of various type, color, and various stages of lithification. You may also observe melt stringers, Schillerian structures, and all sorts of melt inclusions, as well as kink banding and planar fracturing in PDFs. You should also observe what I had first believed to be chondrules before close examination showed a different crystalline structure than that of chondrules. These glassy spherules present in several colors, sizes, and stages of crystallization, from clear to translucent to black and opaque. A couple of the clear ones are even close to a centimeter in size. A picture should go by or have gone by of one of the ones I took the liberty of polishing up, so y'all can see the distinct crystalline structure contained. The dark spherules are difficult to spot, except when they are highlighted by background clast or metallic iron or whatnot. There are also thin black shock veins visible throughout the boulder, hiding in plain sight. You may also notice several can be seen to cross paths. These shock veins also cut through the clasts and grains as though they weren't there. When thin sectioned and magnified, especially under cross polarization, the extensively shocked nature of this material becomes quite unmistakable and exposes what certainly appears to be the evidence of multiple shock events. If this is indeed the case, it would essentially be diagnostic evidence that this impactite could only be extraterrestrial in origin, and from a planetary body that would have to be devoid of an atmosphere or an active crustal geology. I'm fairly certain that y'all are smart enough to have a pretty good idea where I'm going with this. The last and only remaining requirement is to test the chemical composition and finally determine once and for all if it is a pseudo, a terrestrial analog of, or North America's first actual chunk of Earth's natural satellite. Astronomical odds behind Mother Nature's Powerball, but somebody's got to win that jackpot eventually. And this is my submission.
Nice. All right, that's the video. Does anyone want to bite off a piece of that elephant? Art, go for it.
Well, first of all, the gentleman seems pretty well versed in the geology, and he's got quite a few photographs, which kind of lost me. I didn't know what I was looking at. I was looking at 24 different rock samples,
Yes.
and what I was seeing was what I would call terrestrial rock in the form of a gabbro granite or granitoid rocks, and nothing jumped out at me really having to do with a meteorite. Impactite, well, who knows? But I became lost, and I don't know what else to say. I'm not picking on this gentleman.
Yeah. Well, I'm
He's
glad you point that out, Art. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm glad you point that out, because that's what Sue and I came to as well when we were getting ready for this and pre-watching this and editing it. It's like we asked for one sample per video. We want to be able to orient ourselves with the rock. So when we say the back of it this, or the front of it that, or the cut side, there shouldn't be 35 cut sides to a rock, because that's not a rock submission. That is a rocks submission, which is not what we're about. It doesn't add clarity. It adds confusion, as Art said. So thank you very much. Ben, going to you. Put the drink down.
Unmute. Okay, just briefly, as opposed to impactite, or to me, it looks more like a terrestrial brecciation in parts of the rock. But like you say, there's so many different shots and perspectives, it's hard to keep them straight. And then the other thing that really sticks out to me is what he's calling melt glasses in a variety of forms. To me, looks like typical quartz or quartz-ose silica found
Right
in
here especially.
Yeah. And that's all I've got.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sue, I'll go to you.
This comment's not really for all of the YouTube viewers, but mostly for the people that are Rockhound members or plan on becoming Rockhound members. I encourage you to go to our video collections. There is one that is made specifically for the Rockhound Hunter supporters. And we have two excellent examples made by our crew members. One is made by Allison, the other one's made by Jules. And we had asked crew members to create videos to give people a good example, because it's rare that we actually kind of get a video that follows all of our guidelines. We saw a great one from Binyam today, but a lot of times we're really struggling. So please, I encourage you to go watch these videos, and you'll see that in less than 3 minutes, each of our crew members hit on everything that we needed. And it helps us as a crew be able to give you the best rock identification possible.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Because if you look at this rock right here and tell me it is the same as this one, I can't buy that. And it's confusing us. So don't submit a video with more than one sample. If you think one of your samples broke in half and you're so confident that it should be included in the same video, just put it aside. Because if one half passes our test, the other half will be sitting there ready to pass our test as well. So thank you very much. Oh, our geologist in the house, Mike Kelly, please help us out something.
Yeah, so the one thing that I really wanted to add was, he mentioned he thought it was lunar, and he mentioned he thought it was brecciated. To me, I see individual large mineral grains. So like Art is saying, to me, that's granitic, right? I saw crystals in there that had a translucency that makes me think that they're quartz, right? Which you're not going to get on Moon. And then as far as the white parts of it, when you would see a lunar, when you have like a northacitic breccias, just like he's saying, when it's surrounded by stuff like melt, you're going to get rounding of the corners in the individual breccia clasts, because they're literally sitting in melt, and they're solely, those sharp corners of them are getting melted down within the rock, not just on the exterior. So you wouldn't see really angular grains like that in something that would be claimed to be surrounded by melts, because you're starting to get the rounding going on inside of it. So that was one of the key features that I saw where I said, okay, that's a igneous terrestrial rock. Those are individual grains that formed out of melt and were never remelted to cause secondary rounding.
I appreciate that dramatically. Thank you very much. Cleaning us up is Pat. Pat, he mentioned Mohs hardness, and he also mentioned the specific gravity. Did you want to comment on at least one of those for us?
Yeah. So he talks about a specific gravity of 2.95, which is you can't prove that a rock is a meteorite because it has a certain specific gravity. That just tells you one more thing. As I look through all this, it would have been great if we could have saw the outside of the rock a little more shown. It is useful to see several interior views. And again, I agree, these really don't all look like they're from the same rock. I agree with Michael. This is a granitoid sort of igneous rock, and those are crystals that are grown as the granite cools. Now, so we talked about Mohs hardness scale too, and he's referencing this to hardened glass, and hardened glass has a Mohs hardness of about 5.5 or 6. Olivines in regular ordinary chondrite meteorites are about 6.5 or 7. Pyroxenes are somewhere between 5 and 7. But I agree with Michael. The white stuff here really looks like quartz. And we don't see quartz in those size crystals in meteorites. There are 100 micron or less sort of size quartz crystals rarely found in meteorites. So I agree. This is an earth rock. It is igneous. I don't see any evidence of metal stringers that he was talking about. And then he shows what appear to be a couple of thin sections here too, with what he calls.
Are they helpful from diagnostic? If we don't know what the coloring is, let's forget about how much is magnified. Let's just look at the crystal. Are the colors significant to us? Can we tell anything on this, not knowing how it was captured?
If we knew that the thin section was 30 microns thick, then yes, we can discuss colors as being identifying birefringent minerals. We have no idea how thick this thin section is. And so, yeah, the colors are not terribly meaningful.
So one of the things that's interesting, and Pat, just to tag along with that, is looking at the opacity that he achieved in those thin sections. Again, you're not going to tell definitely without a reference mineral grain in there, like quartz would be if it was lemony yellow to gray. But the opacity of what he had in the thin section slides seemed thick to me. You're not getting the sort of translucency in the individual grains that you would see if it was to 30 micron.
Right.
Observation. Thank you, Mike.
Wow. Well, that is why I have a strong crew behind me, because I can't get into all the detail myself, because we're only going to speak about what we know about. So I really appreciate the crew backing me up and giving me all the help on these IDs. Thank you very much, Mike and Pat as well. I appreciate you allowing me to tap you guys on the back for a little extra time. Don't be scared. It's not that hard. You don't need to get this scientific. Just shoot us a video, natural sunlight, rotating it in focus slowly, telling us what you see. That's it. It's not that hard, guys. You don't need to make it any more complicated than it is. Life is hard enough as it is. All right. Thank you very much for your support. Have a great week, guys. Bye.